This is an ABC 26 News Special, Rebuilding New Orleans, the Dutch Plan.
This is the A. Baldwin Wood Pumping Station in Broadmoor, named for the New Orleanian whose inventions revolutionized pumping, both here in New Orleans and in the Netherlands. Young Denise will have his story just a little later. Now, another piece of the Delta Works project. The Dutch say this one reduces the chance of flooding to 1 in 4,000 years. It's a huge storm surge barrier that the Dutch say cost them a whole lot more money than they originally agreed to shell out. But the Dutch also say this is the price you pay when even after construction has started, you find a much better way to protect the environment and at the same time manage water.
We really realized how dangerous the sea can be.
Flood survivor Nico Portvlay now works for the government's ambitious Delta Works. This is the Eastern Scheldt Storm Surge Barrier or dam, protecting miles of low-lying coastline from the North Sea. The Dutch say they rely on sand dunes to protect 70% of their coastline. They call that a soft measure, and when it doesn't work, they're more than willing to try a hard measure, like building a storm surge barrier.
You are here at the last and most difficult, most expensive stage of the Delta project.
A massive structure that closes off channels from the North Sea to big ships and big storm surges, the source of the '53 flooding. The finished product dramatically different from the designer's original blueprint.
Where you are now ought to be a solid dam as well. But in the course of the decades, the opinions began to change because damming up would have meant destroying the saltwater tidal environment.
And that would have been, pardon me, and that would have been the old way of thinking.
That's the old way of thinking. Fight the sea, keep it outside, and we just have learned a lesson: water needs space. If you don't give it space, it simply will take it.
In the second half of the 1960s, Dutch public opinion railed against completely closing off this world-famous inlet, stocked with rare plants and animals, a rich store of food, a sanctuary for birds, and a haven for saltwater fishing. In other words, an area of huge importance to the Netherlands environmentally and economically. So engineers redesigned the project and the Dutch built it.
In fact, you could compare the barrier with a 62 huge window frames, and in window frames made by the piers, the sill beams and the upper beams. And in front of those beams there are 62 steel sliding gates. If we have to deal with the normal weather conditions, the gates will be raised continuously, but on the very moment that you forecast dangerous high tides, it will look like this. Within an hour, the gates go down and shut off the sea from the hinterland, and then we are safe.
The cost of the project soared from $500 million to $2.5 billion. Do people think that it's worth it here?
Yes, yes. Not one of them is complaining about the money. They all say it's a good compromise between completely closed or keep it open for just ecology. It's a compromise. It's a bit the Dutch habit to find always a compromise.
If we look outside,
U.S. delegates toured the Eastern Scheldt Dam, including the museum inside. Outside, they walked its steps and examined how the Dutch built it and how, as a bridge, it connects islands and protects the coastline. What's the alternative if you don't do projects like this?
Well, you have to give up the area, since it's all below sea level. And I think that's one of the strong things about the Dutch. After '53, one thing was quite clear: we have to act as soon as possible. Close the dikes, reclaim the land again. You might make some strange decisions, wrong decisions, but try to improve afterwards.
I helped with sandbags.
The Dutch Deputy Prime Minister told the delegates he remembers 1953. He was 16 then. He said since then, Dutch thinking had to evolve.
It is impressive also in terms that you have to look at these issues from an integrated way. It is not simply a technical matter. It is not simply a question of pumping water away. It is not simply the Army Corps of Engineers dredging. It is a question of a vision of a society. And I understand, I've once been, in my early life, I'm a jazz fan, seeing New Orleans. It was a political choice that Louisiana was populated. It was a political choice that it is an important port system. It is a political choice that the oil and gas of the Caribbean are coming both to Louisiana, to Texas, to Mississippi. And so the question is whether the strongest nation in the world, the richest nation in the world, has the political vision, the political power, and the political concept of recreating a system worth for living society.
Back home, our objective will be to have the rest of our government understand that it is a matter of choice, of political choice that we can make, because our friends are helping us to understand how to get it done if we have the will to get it done.
For those who witnessed the wrath of nature, the government has undoubtedly plotted the right course.
Before the 50s, there were just islands here with very tiny dikes, and so we are much more safer here, much more safer.
One message we heard over and over again in the Netherlands is the concept of an integrated system. The Dutch believe you don't wait for the water to reach your levees. They say protection starts on the coast.